Hello Hastings, I'm Tom Wright. Welcome to another In Studio. I am here with Kelsey Waits, your school board member for Independent School District 200. And we're here to talk about, give an update on the Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion initiative. There was a big event earlier this spring that some data and ideas were collected, and we're here to give the results of that because Kelsey here had the task of putting it all together and putting the data together and seeing what we learned from that. So Kelsey, welcome to the studio, first of all.
Thank you.
It's good to have you here. For those not familiar, let's catch them up to where we're at here, how this initiative got started. What is the story on this?
So the initiative actually got started about 2 years ago, and it started with a group of community members who got together and they just started having conversations about Hastings and what they thought we could be working on and what was great with the community, and it sort of evolved into this larger scale project where they wanted to see the city take more initiative with different things. And so that's how it all got started, was actually based on community discussions and community feedback.
Great. And it resulted in a big meeting earlier this spring. I mentioned like in the high school commons here, and we have it on YouTube. We filmed that, and for those weren't able to make it, you can watch that on YouTube. Just look for the diversity events, I believe, search that, and you'll be able to find it. Pretty well attended, over 250 residents, I believe, something like that.
250, yeah.
Yeah, that's a good number. And had many speakers. You had the Hastings Middle School principal Mark Zuzik, Superintendent Tim Collins was there, Mayor Hicks spoke, and then Executive Director Derek Jager from the Y also talked, and then of course you and other school board members as well as city council members did a joint proclamation, correct?
That's correct, yep. We gave a joint proclamation to say that Hastings was going to work against any sort of discrimination, and that we would be working to be a community where all feel welcome here.
And then after that, you guys had broke it down by table with some table discussions with two key questions. Is that what it was?
Yep, we had two questions, and those were, what does a welcoming community look like to you, was the first question, and the second question is, what can you do to make this a welcoming community? So we were looking to get feedback on what people believed their individual actions could be, or what their actions within their business could be, and things like that to work towards this welcoming atmosphere.
Wow. So trying to do my math here, 250 people divided by what, 6 to 8 people at a table, that's like over 40 some tables, I think. I think it was 42 I think I did, or something like that. That's a lot of data. So were you the one, and you're the one that got the kind of the task there to take it all on?
I wouldn't say I got the task, I took the task.
You took the task.
Very excitedly.
Yeah.
Before I stayed home with my kids, I was actually a statistician. That's what my degree is in, and I used to work on projects coding data frequently in graduate school. And so for me, seeing this huge amount of data was just very exciting, and I couldn't wait to jump in and start working on it. So I worked on coding with Carrie Gore, who's with the community education, and then Bill Spinelli, who he calls himself a community loudmouth, but he is a community activist, and we worked together to code this data and come up with our results.
Great. And so I understand you've got the result. That's why we're here today. We got the results, and you have some pie charts and stuff, some visuals to show us what we have here. And we'll start with this one here. On what would a welcoming community look like? So tell us, explain what we're seeing here.
Well, so first I'll explain kind of how we did the coding so that it's understood better. So when we're looking at all of these responses, and there were hundreds of them, that when you're trying to organize this data, it's important. You don't want your own biases affecting how you interpret what someone has written. So it's important to have multiple coders looking at the data to try to make sure that we have agreement versus just my bias influencing how I've coded something. So we actually had 3 separate people doing the coding, and then anytime 2 coders agreed, that's what it was coded at, to make sure that we had agreement on all of the codes. So that's how we had done it. And so these are the results that we came up with. So what I think is most interesting is what would a welcoming community look like? And we have 41% of responses talked about the need to be accepting and engaging others. And one reason that that's very interesting to me anyway is because the city had also done a community survey. And openness and acceptance was one of only 3 different areas in which we fell below the national benchmark. So the community.
Right, and I think we're seeing that on the screen right now.
Exactly.
The National Citizen Survey.
Yep. So down at the bottom, there's an openness and acceptance, and we get a 44% score, which is actually lower than the national benchmark. And so the city had already seen survey results that said people were feeling like we weren't as open and accepting as perhaps we could be. And so then we're also seeing in these responses that the community thought a welcoming community would be accepting and engaging of others. And this worked with having more dialogues with people, welcoming new neighbors to the community, working on community conversations, being kind and respectful to one another. And so those are all part of this accepting and engaging with others. It was looking at that one-on-one personal contact that people were looking to achieve.
Interesting. And I see that the second most important thing was the system level changes they felt.
Yes, and so the system level changes included affordable housing, working on poverty issues, public transportation, some of the community-wide behaviors where maybe people have had experiences of not feeling like Hastings is extremely welcoming, those sorts of larger system changes.
I see. Okay. Wow. All right. Let's go back to our desktop here. I'll find and this is the same question, but it's portrayed, you portray the answers a little different by issue here. Okay.
Yep.
And yeah, if you could explain this, what we're seeing here.
Yep. So each one of the comments that we coded for, we coded in 2 different ways. And one was the first chart with the theme, where we were looking more specifically at what they were saying. And the second way was looking at type, whether people were seeing these as personal and individual issues to tackle, whether they saw this as something the community needed to tackle, community changer issues. Some of them, whether they were youth or dealing with the schools, and so they were organized in that way. So again, we're seeing that the biggest response here is community-wide changing and issues and working on a bigger picture versus some of the smaller things.
I see, okay. All right. Going on to question 2 here, I'll pull it up. What will you do to make Hastings a welcoming community? And what did we find out here?
We're seeing, again, very similar to the first question. And now this was, what would you do as an individual to be a more welcoming community, or what could you do in your place of business or in a property that you own? Overall, how could you be working on this? And so again, we're seeing people discussing being more accepting and engaging of others. And a lot of these had to do with welcoming new people, trying to actually reach out and communicate with your neighbors, saying hi to people at the grocery store that you wouldn't normally say hi with. And these are even easy ways that we can spread it quicker if you just work on saying hi or hello, how was your day, to individual people. And so we're seeing that as a lot of what community members thought they could do themselves to be working on.
Nice. That makes sense. That makes a lot of sense. All right. So people, when you're at the grocery store, say hi. All right. Lesson learned there. All right. And then question 2 by issue.
Yep.
There we go.
Now this one is a bit different than question 1 because we were looking at whether you were looking at something you could do individually or in your place of business. And so they're split pretty closely there, whether people were looking at personally what could be done or in the community what could be done. But overall, people looked at what they as individuals could be working on. But then if we go back to question 1, they're looking at a larger community change. So I would almost interpret that as, what can individuals do to create this larger community change that we're looking for? Because there's a lot that we as individuals can do.
And what were some that, I know you guys took ideas as well, you know, what sort of ideas that were brought up in this in the information? Did you?
A lot of it was connecting with others, working on making those personal connections, having better conversations and dialogues with people. There were also a lot of suggestions to have more multicultural events, to work on different signage that has multiple language. And they seem kind of small, but they can combine to make a larger thing.
Right.
So there's only a handful of signs in Hastings that actually have more than one language on them. And so working on increasing something like that is a way to welcome people without even having to say anything. It's just being more open by having more languages present.
Right.
So our schools actually have 27 different languages represented in them, which
Really?
is pretty incredible.
That is incredible. I didn't know that. Wow. Okay. So what would you say are like the main takeaways from all this, from the two questions you got from all this information?
I would take it as very positive. I mean, people have mentioned wanting to be more open and accepting of others, but they haven't necessarily said that Hastings isn't open and accepting, just that there's room to grow, and that's something that we can be working on. And I think that the responses we've gotten and how people are really trying to engage with this and looking on taking personal responsibility to work on being more open and accepting and speaking to more people, that I think we're in the middle of getting something started, and I think that there's a lot that we can keep doing.
Great. And you're going to keep, I understand it is going to keep going because we have a couple events coming up here. Tell us what is the next step? I understand we have a community training session on June 25th.
So our next diversity initiative is community training at, it's actually...
I'll pull up the flyer here and you can use my cheat notes here too.
It's in the high school commons, and it's called The Hidden Brain and Unconscious Bias, and it's actually being put on with the YMCA.
Oops.
We're doing a lot of work with them. And so this is a 2-hour seminar type thing where we can participate and work on what our own unconscious biases are, because unless we know those, we can't really be working on things. We need to be aware of what our own biases may be, and we all have them.
Right, yeah, that's something we all have to be self-aware of, is that we do have them, yes.
Yep, so we need to acknowledge that we have them, otherwise we can't really grow and learn from them. So this is kind of starting it off. Let's learn about what our own biases are and then figure out how to go from there. And then in July, we're having another community conversation.
Before we go into July, I just want to clarify, so this is no cost, correct?
Correct. This is free. We would love for the community to come. We can have up to 200 people or more if more show up.
Great.
So there's plenty of space. If you haven't already RSVP'd with the city, you are welcome to just show up, or you can RSVP as well, and yes, it's free. So
great, good. Just want to make sure that was clear. And then, yes, on July 2nd, or not 2nd, July 16th, tell us what's going on July 16th.
So July 16th, we are having another community conversation similar to the ones that we had last year that got this whole project started. And it's a way for the community to get involved with this project and to express their thoughts and what they're thinking, and then we can take more of that information and kind of keep figuring out where to move on from this project, because this project has always been community-led. It was community-started, community-led, and we want to continue that going forward. So having community involvement, getting feedback, and continuing to use that to grow the project is really our goal.
Great, great. For anybody interested, where can they find information on this? I understand it's all in one spot on the city's website?
Yes, the city has it all set up on their website, and the school district did have a link on their site as well. I believe it's still there. So
I believe it's hastingsmn.gov/equity. Did I get that right?
Right.
I'll look here. Yes, I did get that right. Don't want to lead them astray. Okay, great. Anything else? Any other points to make, or anything else that we haven't covered?
No, I don't think so. I would just really encourage the community to attend, and the more feedback we get and the more community voices we hear, the better this project can be for Hastings. And so I would encourage as many people to attend as can.
There we go. All right. Well, Kelsey, thank you very much for your time. It's good to see you.
Thank you.
And thanks for all you do, all your effort on this and your time put into this and getting all this, the numbers crunched and your effort in organizing this as well. Because I understand you're also an organizer for the event.
Yes, actually, I had heard about it when I was running for office, and I said I want to jump in. So.
Very good. Cool. Well, thank you again. And thank you folks at home for joining us. We'll see you next time for another In Studio.